Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is a short introduction to why we need to sleep. Many of us struggle. It's an area of work that I've spent over 10 years working in and with supporting clients who wake in the early hours, permanently tired and fatigued. And I just wanted to put something short and succinct together that really hopefully answers some of those initial questions that you may or may not have. So, we're going to cover the importance of actually thinking about quality versus quantity. We've all been led rightly to think that 8 hours is the magic number, but what if there's more to it than that? What if it's what happens whilst we're sleeping that's actually important? We'll look at the importance of the different phases of sleep, how sleep is so crucial in affecting our stress, our weight, performance, among other things. And we'll look at some quick tips on how to help you to make some changes. This is not a fully comprehensive video by any stretch. It's introductory. So if you have questions or you are struggling to get to sleep and some of this has resonated, then do get in touch and I will redirect you in the right place so that you can find the support that you need. So I wonder, do you think you've got enough sleep? Maybe you wear one of these measures, bracelets, rings, watches that tell you how many hours you've slept and what the sleep that you had comprised of. But really, my question to you is, how do you feel when you wake up? Do you feel like you've had a good night's sleep? Because actually, you're the best expert. Only you know how you feel. And you're probably pretty good at working out whether you've had a good night or a bad night, depending on how you feel when you first wake up in the morning. Fabulous, fabulous phrase, but actually quite pertinent for many of us who are constantly pushing ourselves to do more, to achieve more, to keep going. And I thought this was quite an interesting fact that, we are sleeping on average 1 to 2 hours less than our grandparents did sixty years ago. Now, that's when we look at the sleep cycles, that's up to, a full sleep cycle less that we're getting. So that's less stress relief, less restoration, less rest. And if we don't get enough sleep, we start to find that our health gets impacted, not just physically, but mentally. So here we've got, some very key references. It diminishes your immune system. Now, your immune system's pretty key. That means you're more likely to get ill, have allergies, skin conditions, etc. Lots of things that are symptoms of a poor immune system. It more than doubles the risk of cancer if you're permanently sleep deprived, and that's all to do with the stressors and various other things that don't get properly processed. It disrupts your blood sugar levels. It can lead to diabetes. And for many of my clients who I work with who are trying to navigate weight, body weight, this is quite significant. Poor sleep increases the likelihood of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and heart failure. That's pretty serious. Not to mention the contribution to psychiatric conditions like depression, anxiety, and OCD, and overwhelm, and just general feelings of mental malaise. And when we're tired, we generally are encouraged to reach for the high energy foods, those foods that taste nice, but that don't necessarily on a regular basis do us much good. But in that moment, they're doing a very important job, which is to restore your energy levels. So when our brain's primary function is to ensure survival, we wonder why sleep has been allowed to continue. Because sleep is key. It's the single most effective thing we can do to reset our body and our brain every day. And this is just a very rough diagram put together that explains the natural progressive cycle, this circadian rhythm that we all live by, this internal body clock. It's the reason why when you've gone on a flight somewhere else, you get jet lagged because you have changed your natural rhythm. You're expecting your body to eat and sleep at different times, and it struggles with that. And this rhythm plays a central role in the quality of our sleep and our overall feelings of well-being. In the morning, natural light encourages the brain to reduce something called melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, and increase various other neurotransmitters. And this helps you to wake up, feel focused and energized. As the day progresses and light levels start to drop, the brain starts to prepare for rest. The melatonin is gradually released into the body, encouraging that sleep phase. So if the circadian rhythm is disrupted through late nights, shift work, as I said, flying, stress, hormonal changes, all sorts of things, our sleep quality can start to be significantly disrupted. So it's just being mindful that if our quality of sleep is good, we can find that it reduces our anxiety, it helps our nervous system to reset, it regulates our appetite and our weight related hormones, and it increases our energy and mental clarity. So, quality of sleep is really, really important for us. So how does the body know when it is time to go to sleep? Well, there's a wonderful chemical we've talked about, melatonin, which is the chemical that makes us feel sleepy. But adenosine is something that causes sleep pressure. It helps the brain to start to prepare throughout the day for that release of the melatonin to encourage sleep later on. And such food types like caffeine, coffees, tea, energy drinks, etc., can all have a negative impact on this. It's just being mindful of that. Many people don't have issues with sleep and they drink coffee just before bedtime. But if you do struggle, these are some areas that you might like to look at and see whether there are changes that can be made to help improve your ability to fall into a good quality sleep. Now, again, this diagram isn't specifically accurate, but it just gives us an idea. The fact this circadian rhythm that we talked about earlier operates in around 90-minute cycles. We're all different, of course, but around 90 minutes for an adult. And we find throughout the night that we range through stages of sleep, light sleep. This is the moment that we drift off into sleep, where we let go of the day. Our breathing slows, our muscles, soften, and your body starts to relax. You might still be aware of the sounds around you, and it's very easy to be pulled out of sleep in this stage. But this stage helps your nervous system to begin to shift out of stress and into that rest and digest. Then we enter stage 2, a deeper stage of light sleep. The body is starting to settle, your heart rate slows, your temperature drops, and your brain activity just becomes calmer. Now, this stage starts the brain to process emotional regulation, helps with our memory function. All sorts of things start to happen in this stage. And then we enter deep sleep. Now, we mentioned on here, you'll see the difference between REM and non-REM, and I'll explain what REM is in a minute. But deep sleep is the most physically restorative stage of sleep. And these sleep cycles come in, as I said, every 90 minutes or so. And this picture doesn't accurately depict it, I'm afraid, but we have far less REM, stage 4, in the early stage of our sleep as we do towards our waking hours. So if we were to be factually correct in this image that I've created, we'd have a little bit of REM in the first couple of sleep cycles, and that REM phase would be steadily increasing. And in an ideal world, we want REM sleep to accompany or to comprise, should I say, 20% of the sleep that we're having on average But again, as I said earlier, you don't need to measure it. You just know. You will know if your sleep is good because you're awake feeling rested and with a clear mind and ready for the rest of the day. I'll take you through the importance of REM in a little bit more detail in a little while, but this is where your dreams occur. Rapid eye movement, and this is where emotions are processed, creativity is created, mental clarity. It helps the brain to cope with the day-to-day stresses that we have faced. And as this slide says, the sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes. Non-REM spans the four stages from light sleep all the way through to deep sleep. And REM sleep, as that name would imply, will be the stage in which the rapid eye movement, so the eyes move rapidly from left to right, you're actually paralyzed so that you can't reenact the things that you are potentially thinking about, and many of the stresses of your day are being processed. So, what stops us from having a good quality sleep? Stress. And I'll give you a lovely metaphor for that in a minute. Alcohol consumption, we might think that alcohol's helping us to sleep well or sleep better, but actually it's impairing any quality of sleep that you might be having. Certain medications, but clearly they've got a purpose. So it's not necessarily stop medication. It's always just talk to the prescriber if you're finding that your medication is impacting your sleep. Children, those of you that are parents, you know damn well that your children have very different agendas. Partners maybe snore, maybe restless, uncomfortable beds, too hot, too much sugar or caffeine. All these things can impact the quality of your sleep, not to mention hormonal changes at certain stages in life. So this lovely diagram here helps me to explain to my clients what's going on. The left prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that here I've depicted as the intellectual mind, is your conscious, rational, controlled part of the brain. It enables you to make informed decisions and fair appraisals of everything that is going on around you now, and for you to come up with solutions. It's where you want to be. However, when you've been sleep deprived, you generally find that this primitive area, the primitive mind here, otherwise known as the limbic system, comprising of your amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus, this part can become slightly more active because it's helping you to deal with the fact that you're more vulnerable when you're sleep deprived. And as the primitive mind steps in to help us, we can often find that our intellectual, that's because the primitive brain is in survival mode and it doesn't want you to think. It just wants you to do as you're told. As I mentioned, I have this lovely metaphor of a bucket. Now, this could be a stress bucket, it could be a worry bucket, a busy bucket. But basically, when we're running on the go all the time, maybe stress job, family life, we're maybe not eating properly, we're not hydrating ourselves, we're having lots of negative thoughts, the bucket will load. So this bucket can have big things in, so specific traumas, past negative bereavements, all sorts of things. Anything that you have perceived as an individual as a problem goes in this bucket. And the more the bucket loads, the more that primitive survival instinct takes over and the less control you have of your cognition. Now, why is this relevant for sleep? Well, when we sleep, we empty the bucket. That REM phase is the brain's way of processing all of the stresses that we hold, those past traumas, those historic arguments, the pain that we had, or the illness, or a day where we actually didn't meet our nutritional needs. It really doesn't matter. When we sleep and we enter that REM phase, we're emptying the bucket. But there's a little bit of a caveat here. I mentioned earlier that we are running on an ideal of 20% of the sleep we have being given to REM. If we're super stressed and our bucket's very full and we're running on an adrenaline, my apologies, then often the brain will wake us up in the early hours. So it might allow a little bit of REM. But when it comes to process the third and the fourth session, it says actually you are going to be better off awake than continuing to process. Because one thing that is really, really key in understanding is the processing of REM sleep is highly energetic. It uses so much energy. And the brain wants to conserve that energy if it thinks it's going to fatigue you too much. So it knows that you're going to be better off if it wakes you up than if it carries on emptying the bucket. So if you're one of those people that finds you're waking between the hours of 1 and 5 repeatedly, it could possibly be because your bucket's too full, and we need to redress that balance. We need to help you to take back control of certain aspects of your life so that your REM phase can work effectively. The other outcome is if you are maybe slightly lower mood, lower energy, suppressing your energy and all of the hormones associated, then actually your REM phase almost gets stuck. You have too much. You spend way too much time in REM, in sleep, and that is exhausting. So then when you wake up, you feel potentially even more exhausted than when you went to sleep earlier, and you're encouraged to want to stay to sleep. Now, that again is because there's too much in the bucket, but unlike anxiety, the brain is trying a different way of keeping that processing going. So either of those options may or may not apply to you. And in my work, the majority of the work that I do is around helping my clients to manage this stress system so that we can get their sleep back on track, that quality sleep that enables them to function at their best. So, what can we do to improve our sleep? Exercise. Now, that doesn't mean lots or running marathons, etc. Is what works for you, but exercise can help us to regulate that stress system and make us feel good. Work to find ways to reduce your personal stress. That could come in many forms. Get out in the daylight as early as possible to expose yourself to that natural light. That will help those sleep hormones to start to activate to help to encourage sleep later on. Maybe wind down 90 minutes or so before bed. Take away technology, for example. Find activities like having a bath, reading a book, listening to a meditation or a download. Now, I have plenty of those to help you if you're interested. Darkness stimulates that release of the melatonin. So screens can sometimes stop that from happening. The blue light kids the brain into thinking it still needs to be awake. Choose what you eat or drink, maybe wisely. Don't do anything that's particularly stimulating. Plan sleep according to your personal sleep cycles. One of the things that I help my clients work out is when the best time to settle to sleep is and when the best time to wake is. And stick to a routine. The brain likes familiarity. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like not knowing. So the more we can give it a nice routine to settle into, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to find that bucket system stays regulated and you're able to have a reasonable night's sleep. So as I said, this is really just a very fleeting introduction to the importance of sleep. My one-to-one work is very much geared towards helping my clients to empty their bucket, and in turn, they often find their sleep improves. I've got a 6-week program designed for those of you that don't think you need or don't want one-to-one therapy, and you can self-serve. And there's plenty of tips and tricks in there, including relaxation downloads and journaling to help you to create new, better, lasting routines around sleep. And I've got some downloads for you that you can take for yourself to help listen to as you settle to sleep each night. So if you're interested, if there's anything that on here you would like more information on, or more information on how I may be able to help you, then please do get in touch. And I would be very happy to explain more and answer any of the questions that you may have about your personal sleep. Thank you for listening, and I very much look forward to hearing from you.